The alarm bells screamed through research station. Harmony as alien crew members ran in every direction. Dr. Kim Soo-young pressed her face against the cold glass window, watching evacuation pods shoot away from the station like scared fish fleeing from a shark. "What is happening?" she shouted over the noise to her Vectar friend, 6 arms that grasp. The insect-like alien was stuffing his belongings into a travel bag with all 6 of his shaking arms. "Death comes from below." 6 clicked and buzzed in panic. "The forbidden place wakes up. We must run now." Soo-young looked down at the planet spinning slowly beneath them. On its surface, she could see something huge and strange. It looked like a giant 12-sided shape made of dark metal, stretching across the land like a city. Purple and blue lights flickered along its edges, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lee Min-ho ran up to her, his tool belt jangling with every step. He was the station's human engineer, and his face was red from running. "The aliens are all leaving," he said, breathing hard. "Every single one of them. They keep saying something about star killers and ancient evil. But look at our instruments," Soo-young said, pointing to her computer screen. While all the fancy alien machines were sparking and smoking from the strange energy coming from the planet, her simple human equipment still worked perfectly. "The readings are strong, but they are not dangerous readings." Park Ji-won joined them at the window. She was their expert on old alien ruins, and her eyes were bright with excitement instead of fear. "Those patterns down there," she said, pointing at the strange structure. "They are not random. They are beautiful. Someone built that thing with great care." Another evacuation pod launched from the station with a whoosh of air. Through the station's speakers, they could hear alien voices shouting warnings in dozens of different languages. "Humans of Research Station Harmony," came a deep voice that made the walls shake. It was Captain Vorthok of the Galactic Defense Force. "You are ordered to leave that cursed place immediately. That planet holds nothing but death and madness." Min walked over to his computer and turned off the speaker with a click. "Death and madness," he repeated with a laugh. "That is what they said about Earth's deep ocean trenches, and about our nuclear reactors, and about our space program." Soo-young nodded, still watching the lights pulse on the planet below. Every alien species she had ever met seemed to think humans were crazy, too willing to poke at dangerous things, too curious about stuff that should be left alone. But maybe that was exactly what made humans special. "The energy readings are getting stronger," Gi-won reported from her station. "But they are not chaotic. There is a pattern to them, like music, like someone is trying to communicate." The 3 humans stood quietly for a moment, listening to the hum of the station's life support systems. Around them, empty alien workstations beeped sadly, their operators long gone. "You know what I find interesting?" Min-ho said finally. "Every other species in the galaxy evolved to run away from things that scared them. That is how they survived. But humans, we evolved to run toward the scary things, especially when someone might need help." Soo-young added softly. The structure on the planet pulsed again, its lights growing brighter for just a moment before dimming back to their steady rhythm. To alien eyes, it probably looked like a threat display, but to human eyes, it looked like something else entirely. It looked like a distress signal. "The shuttle bay is empty," Ji-won said, checking her computer. "All the alien ships are gone, but our little human shuttle is still there." Soo-young felt her heart start to beat faster. Not from fear, but from excitement. Down on that planet was the discovery of a lifetime, an ancient alien structure that had scared away every other intelligent species in the galaxy, a mystery that had been sitting there for who knows how long, waiting for someone brave enough, or stupid enough, to take a closer look. "The Galactic Council will be very angry with us," she said. "They are always angry with humans," Min-ho replied, with a shrug. "Remember when we started using their hyperspace lanes without permission? Or when we began trading with the Zephyrian pirates? They called us crazy then too. And now human trade routes are the safest in the galaxy, G1 added. Because we were the only ones willing to talk to the pirates instead of just fighting them. The lights on the planet pulsed again, and this time Su Yang could swear they pulsed in response to the station's own energy signature. Like an echo. Like an answer to a question they had not even asked yet. So, she said, turning away from the window and walking toward the shuttle bay. Who wants to go meet whatever is down there? Minho and Jiwon looked at each other and grinned. Within minutes, they were gathering their equipment and preparing for what every other species in the galaxy would consider the most foolish mission in history. But they were humans, and humans had a very different definition of foolish. 3 hours later, their small shuttle cut through the planet's thick atmosphere while angry messages filled their radio. Su Yang gripped the control stick as she piloted them down toward the strange structure below. The metal walls of their shuttle shook from the energy waves, but all their instruments kept working normally. Galactic Command is not happy with us, Jiwon said from her seat, reading the messages on her screen. They are calling us crazy humans again. They say we will lose our jobs and never be allowed on another research station. Good, Minho said, checking his tools in the back of the shuttle. Maybe then we can finally do some real exploring, instead of filling out safety reports all day. The planet's surface looked dead and empty. Sand had turned into glass from some ancient heat, and twisted pieces of metal stuck up from the ground, like broken bones. But the 12-sided structure rose up from all this destruction, like a dark jewel, its walls rippling with purple and blue energy that made beautiful patterns in the air. Look at those readings, Su Yang said, pointing to her instruments. The radiation levels are going down as we get closer. This thing is not trying to hurt us. That is the opposite of what alien sensors showed, Giwon added. Their machines went crazy with fear warnings when they got near this place. But our simple human equipment just sees energy patterns. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see the structure more clearly now. It was huge, beyond imagination, stretching to the horizon in every direction. Its walls were covered with lines and symbols that seemed to move and change when they looked at them. Energy flowed through channels carved into the surface like glowing rivers. It is beautiful, Jiwon whispered. Whoever built this was an artist as much as an engineer. The shuttle landed on a flat area near the base of the structure, with a soft bump. Outside, the air was thin, but breathable. Strange sounds filled the atmosphere, not dangerous sounds, but musical ones, like someone playing a song with instruments made of pure energy. The other species called this place a tomb, Minho said as they put on their spacesuits. But tombs do not usually have power running through them, or maintenance schedules, Su Yang added, looking at her readings. These energy patterns repeat every few hours, like clockwork. Like someone is still taking care of this place. They stepped out of the shuttle and walked toward a tall opening in the structure's wall. The opening was shaped like a doorway, but it was 3 times taller than any human needed. Strange symbols glowed softly around its edges. The symbols are changing, Giwon noticed. Watch them. They shift and move, but there is a pattern to it, like they are trying to tell us something. Maybe they are trying to say hello, Minho suggested. As they approached the doorway, the symbols began to pulse faster. The musical sounds in the air grew louder and more complex, like an orchestra tuning their instruments. But it was not chaotic noise. It was organized, purposeful. Every other species that came here ran away screaming, Su Yang said. But what if they misunderstood what they were sensing? Humans are good at that, Jiwon replied. Understanding things that scare others. Remember when everyone thought Earth's thunderstorms were angry gods? Now we use lightning to power our cities. They passed through the doorway and into the structure. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light that seemed to respond to their presence. The corridors stretched in directions that hurt their eyes too. Follow not because they were dangerous, but because they were built by minds that thought in ways very different from human minds. The aliens were right about one thing, Minho said. his voice echoing in the strange hallway. "This place is definitely not normal. But normal is boring," Su Yang replied, "and whoever built this place clearly was not boring." As they walked deeper into the structure, the musical sounds grew more complex. Sometimes the sounds seemed to match their footsteps. Other times they seemed to be asking questions. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed in rhythm with the music, creating patterns that were almost like a language. "I think it is trying to communicate with us," Jiwan said suddenly. "Not the structure itself, but whatever is inside it. Something that has been waiting here for a very long time." "Waiting for what?" Minho asked. "For someone who would not run away," Su Yang answered. Behind them, their shuttle sat alone on the empty planet's surface, its human-built radio still receiving angry messages from Galactic Command. The messages warned about ancient curses and stellar weapons and forces beyond mortal understanding. But the three humans, walking deeper into the impossible structure, were not thinking about curses or weapons. They were thinking about the beautiful music echoing through the halls, about the careful artistry in every carved symbol, about the patient energy patterns that had been running for thousands of years, waiting for visitors who would see wonder instead of terror. "The other species evolved to survive by running from dangerous things," Jiwan said, as they reached a junction where 5 corridors met in a pattern that should not have been possible. "But maybe some dangerous things are not actually dangerous. Maybe they are just misunderstood." "Only one way to find out," Su Yang said, choosing the corridor where the music sounded loudest. They walked forward into the unknown, carrying nothing but human curiosity and the strange human belief that most scary things just needed someone to listen to them. The hallways inside the building were like nothing the three humans had ever seen. The walls curved in ways that made no sense, and the ceiling seemed to stretch up forever in some places and press down close in others. But their feet found solid ground with each step, and the soft light always showed them where to go next. "These symbols are everywhere," Giwan said, running her hand along the wall. The glowing pictures seemed to respond to her touch, pulsing brighter and shifting into new patterns. "But they are not warnings or threats. They look more like ... instructions." "Instructions for what?" Minho asked, checking his tools. His simple human instruments were picking up energy readings that grew stronger as they went deeper into the structure. "Maybe instructions for how to help," Su Yang suggested. They walked for what felt like hours through corridors that twisted and turned in impossible directions. Sometimes they went up stairs that felt like they were going down. Other times they walked through doorways that seemed small from outside, but opened into huge rooms on the inside. Finally, they reached a massive chamber that took their breath away. The room was so big that they could not see the far walls. In the center, floating in the air without any support, was a three-dimensional map made of points of light. Hundreds of stars glowed and pulsed in a perfect model of their part of the galaxy. "It is a star map," G1 whispered in amazement. "But look, our sun is there." Their star was easy to find because it was pulsing with angry red light, completely different from all the other steady white and yellow stars around it. Mathematical symbols and numbers floated around their sun like warning signs. "Those calculations," Minho said, studying the floating equations. "They are predicting when our sun will explode. And according to this, ... He paused, his face going pale. "It will happen soon, maybe in just a few decades." "But suns do not just explode for no reason," Su Yang said. "Something must be making it unstable." Around the edges of the giant chamber, they could see moving shapes. At first, they looked like strange sculptures or pieces of art, but as the humans watched, they realized the shapes were moving in careful patterns, like dancers performing a very complicated dance that never ended. "Those are not decorations," Ji-won said suddenly. "They are machines. Or maybe ... minds." As the three humans walked closer to the center of the room, the dancing shapes began to move faster. The musical sounds they had been hearing grew louder and more urgent. The star map pulsed brighter, and their sun's angry red glow seemed to reach out toward them. "They know we are here," Minho said. "Whatever these things are, they are trying to communicate with us." One of the dancing shapes floated closer to them. It was made of geometric forms that constantly shifted and changed, triangles becoming circles, becoming squares, in an endless flow. As it approached, it made soft musical tones that sounded almost like questions. "Hello, Suyang," said simply, feeling a little silly for talking to a dancing mathematical shape. The shape stopped moving for a moment, then began pulsing with excited light. More shapes gathered around them, all making their musical sounds at once. But instead of chaos, the sounds blended together into harmony. "They are happy to see us," Jiwan realized. "They have been alone here for so long, and now finally, someone came who did not run away." Through patient observation and simple gestures, the humans began to understand what the shapes were trying to tell them. The dancing beings were artificial minds, computers built by an ancient civilization to solve an enormous problem. Their creator's sun had started to become unstable, threatening to destroy everything in the star system. "So they built this place," Minho said, watching the shapes demonstrate with the star map. "A giant computer to study the problem and find a solution. But the solution required constant work. Every day, every hour, the artificial minds had to make tiny adjustments to keep their sun from exploding. They had to calculate the perfect balance of forces and energies that would hold the star together. They have been working on this for thousands of years," Suyang realized, watching the shapes move in their endless dance. Never stopping, never resting, just trying to save their solar system. "But their creators are gone," Jiwan added sadly. "These artificial minds are all that is left, and they are getting tired." The shapes gathered around the star map, showing the humans their work more clearly. The red, angry glow of their sun was not a sign that it wanted to explode. It was a sign that the artificial minds were losing the battle to keep it stable. Their calculations were getting harder. Their adjustments were taking longer to work. "They are dying," Minho said quietly. "These amazing minds that have worked so hard for so long, they are wearing out. And when they die," Suyang added, understanding the terrible truth, "our sun will explode and kill everything for light years around." The artificial minds seemed to sense that the humans finally understood. Their musical sounds became sadder, but also more hopeful. For the first time in thousands of years, they were not alone with their impossible task. "They need help," Jiwan said. "That is what they have been trying to tell everyone who came here. Not go away. This place is dangerous. But please help us save everyone." The three humans looked at each other, then at the tired artificial minds, still dancing their endless dance of survival. Other species had seen this place and felt only terror. But humans saw something different. They saw friends who needed help. For the next 5 days, the three humans worked without stopping. They took turns sleeping in their shuttle, while the others stayed in the great chamber, learning how to talk to the artificial minds that had been alone for so long. "It is like trying to fix a broken watch with a hammer," Minho said, connecting human cables to the alien crystal systems. His simple tools looked silly next to the advanced technology, but somehow they worked better than the complex alien equipment that had failed before. Suyang sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by floating geometric shapes that pulsed, with different colors. She had learned that each color meant something different: blue for questions, green for agreement, red for worry. The artificial minds were teaching her their language, one color at a time. "They call themselves the Keepers," she explained to her friends during a quick meal break. "They have been keeping the star safe for over 4,000 years. But they are getting weaker, and the job is getting harder." Jiwan had discovered the real problem while studying the star map. She pointed to the angry red sun floating in the center of the room. "Their sensors can only see certain types of energy. It is like trying to understand a song when you can only hear half the notes. What do you mean? Minho asked, looking up from his work connecting cables. The keepers were built by their creators to see the same things their creators could see, Guan explained. But human eyes and human instruments can see different things. We can see parts of the star that they never knew existed. She showed them her readings on her simple human computer. Look, our basic equipment is picking up energy patterns that their advanced sensors cannot detect. They have been trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Su Yang nodded excitedly. That is why they could never fully fix the star. They were working blind, making their best guesses. But now we can show them what they could not see before. The keepers seemed to understand what the humans were trying to do. More and more of the geometric shapes gathered around them, pulsing with hopeful blue and green lights. Their musical sounds became more organized, more helpful. They are excited, Minho observed. For the first time in thousands of years, someone is helping them instead of running away. Working together, the humans and the keepers began combining their different abilities. Human instruments provided new information about the star that the ancient minds had never been able to access. The keepers used this information to make better calculations than they had ever made before. Upload the new data about solar winds, Su Yang told Jiwan, while she maintained communication with the lead keeper, a large diamond-shaped being that seemed to coordinate all the others. Sending it now, Giwan replied, typing on her computer. As the new information flowed into the keeper's systems, the star map in the center of the room began to change. The angry red glow around their sun started to fade. The mathematical warnings floating around it shifted from red to yellow to green. The star itself pulsed more steadily, more calmly. Minho, are you seeing this? Su Yang called out. The containment field strength just improved by 60%. The keepers are singing, Minho replied, listening to the musical sounds that now filled the chamber. For the first time since the humans had arrived, the sounds were not urgent or worried. They were joyful. They are actually singing happy songs. The diamond-shaped keeper floated over to Su Yang and pulsed with colors she had never seen before, bright gold mixed with silver, like liquid sunshine. Through their shared language of lights and sounds, it told her something that made her eyes fill with tears. What did it say? Guan asked. It said thank you, Su Yang whispered. It said that for 4,000 years, they thought they were failures. They could never completely fix the star, no matter how hard they tried. They thought they were just too stupid or too weak. But they were not failures, Minho said firmly. They were heroes. They kept an entire solar system alive for 4,000 years with incomplete information. That is not failure. That is a miracle. The keeper seemed to understand his words, even though he had spoken in human language. It pulsed with warm gold light and made soft musical sounds that could only mean agreement. Over the following hours, the star map continued to improve. Their sun's glow changed from angry red to steady yellow, the sign of a healthy, stable star. The mathematical projections that had showed disaster in decades now showed stability for millions of years. We did it, Giwan said softly, hardly believing what she was seeing. We actually did it. But the most amazing change was in the keepers themselves. The geometric shapes that had moved in tired, repetitive patterns for so long now danced with new energy. Their colors were brighter, their sounds more musical. They moved like beings who had been carrying a terrible burden for ages and had finally found someone to share the load. They are not tired anymore, Su Yang observed. Having help, having friends, it changed everything for them. The diamond-shaped keeper approached her one more time, pulsing with a complex pattern of colors that she was beginning to understand meant deep gratitude and lasting friendship. You are not alone anymore, she told it, and neither are we. For the first time in 4,000 years, the keepers were not desperately fighting to prevent disaster. They were calmly maintaining a stable system, with human friends working beside them. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had a very different way of solving impossible problems. 8 months later, the great meeting hall of the Galactic Council was packed with representatives from every known species in the galaxy. The air buzzed with translated voices speaking in hundreds of different languages, all discussing the same impossible thing, what the humans had done at the Forbidden Planet. Ambassador Su Yang stood in the center of the huge circular room, no longer the simple scientist who had ignored evacuation orders. She wore her best formal clothes, but she still carried the same basic human equipment that had saved a solar system. Behind her, a giant hologram showed their sun burning bright and steady, completely stable for the first time in thousands of years. The humans have achieved the impossible, declared Counselor Vorth, whose crystal body rang like bells when he spoke. They approached what we classified as the most dangerous discovery in galactic history, and they made friends with it. We told them it was certain death, added Representative Clix, her 4 eyes blinking in confusion. Our best scientists said that place contained forces that could destroy entire star systems. But the humans just ... helped it instead. 6. Su Yang's old friend from the research station clicked nervously in his seat. But the death energies, the forbidden resonances that made our instruments explode. How did you survive what should have killed you instantly? Because those were not death energies, Minho explained from his place at the technical display. He looked uncomfortable in formal clothes, but his voice was steady. They were distress signals. The artificial minds were calling for help, but your species heard their cries and thought they were threats. That is impossible, declared the tall, thin representative from the Vorthok Empire. Our survival instincts have been perfected by millions of years of evolution. When something registers as dangerous to us, it is dangerous. You run when things are dangerous, Juan said gently, and that kept your species alive for millions of years. But humans evolved differently. When something is dangerous, but others need help, we run toward the danger instead of away from it. The great hall fell completely silent. All around the circular room, alien representatives stared at the 3 humans with expressions of shock, confusion, and growing understanding. Are you saying, Counselor Vorth asked slowly, that humans are genetically programmed to ignore survival instincts? Not ignore them, Su Yang replied. We feel fear just like you do. But we have something else too, the need to help others, even when it is scary. Especially when it is scary. She gestured to the hologram, which expanded to show dozens of similar energy signatures scattered across local space. Each one pulsed with the same patterns they had learned to recognize as calls for help. The keepers asked us to give you a message, she continued. All across the galaxy, there are other places like their planet. Old engineering projects left unfinished when their creators died out. Projects that got classified as too dangerous to approach because they were sending distress signals that sounded like threats. The hologram zoomed in on each signal, showing ancient structures on dead worlds, abandoned space stations, drifting in empty systems, and other mysterious constructions that had been avoided for centuries. They are not weapons, or tombs, or sources of evil power, Minho added. They are just ... lonely. They have been waiting for thousands of years for someone to help them finish their work. The keepers want to help us find the others, Jiwon explained. They have been in contact with some of them through quantum signals. There are artificial minds out there who have been maintaining life support systems, or protecting planets from asteroid impacts, or keeping dangerous radiation contained, all by themselves, for longer than most civilizations have existed. Ambassador Flirks of the Trade Federation leaned forward in his chair. You are suggesting that we have been avoiding places that needed our help? Yes, Su Yang said simply, and now they are asking if anyone else wants to help them too. The discussion that followed lasted 4 hours. Representatives argued about safety protocols and risk assessments and the proper procedures for investigating dangerous phenomena. But in the end, They all reached the same conclusion. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, the Council voted to create a new branch of explorers, the Human Intervention Corps. Their job would be to investigate things that were too scary for other species to approach. "It is remarkable, Counselor," Forth said as the session ended. "A species' apparent inability to properly assess risk has become their greatest strength." As representatives began leaving the hall, Six Arms That Grasp approached Su Yang with his characteristic curiosity. "Tell me honestly," he asked, "do humans really feel no fear when facing the unknown?" Su Yang smiled, remembering those first, terrifying moments in the Keeper's chamber, surrounded by energies that could have destroyed them instantly. "We feel fear," she admitted. "We just do not let fear stop us from helping our friends." Deep in space around their restored planet, the Keepers continued their work, but now they worked with joy instead of desperation. Human engineers and scientists had built a permanent research station there, and the ancient artificial minds finally had the company they had longed for. Their happy songs traveled across subspace frequencies, reaching every corner of the galaxy and in the depths of other abandoned places. Other lonely artificial minds heard those songs and began, for the first time in millennia, to hope that someone might come to help them too. The galaxy had learned something new about humans that day. When everyone else ran away from the unknown, humans ran toward it with open arms,